The Netflix adaptation of Death Note was truly awful. I don't think it's meant to be a comedy, but almost everything about it was unintentionally hilarious. So, what went wrong? A lot of things. Most things, in fact. Not quite everything, just almost everything. First up, I need to acknowledge that both the anime series and the movie were adapted from the manga, so both are adaptations that take a different form to the original narrative. Secondly, I need to acknowledge that I haven't read that original work. Any commentary on the anime's narrative is not in relation to that of the original, but rather as a portrayal of the themes that all three seem to be concerned with. Finally, I also need to put a disclaimer on this video. I love the anime series, but I'm not angry with the Netflix movie simply because it changed things, but rather because it totally failed to utilize the potential of the themes in the narrative. With all this in mind, I will be spoiling almost all of the Netflix movie, and roughly the first third of the anime series. If you don't want either the show or the movie spoiled though, now's the time to find a nice cat video or something. To begin, I want to frame my experience with the anime series. I hated anime. All of it. The very idea of these dumb faces, dramatic plots, and bizarre humour did not sit well with me. I tried watching the glorified Pizza Hut commercial that was Code Geass and wasn't impressed. The glimpses of other popular series just left me perplexed. I didn't like anime Tim I Am, not on the bus or on a train, not in the sun or the rain. Or at least that was my opinion until I watched Death Note. Don't get me wrong, Death Note had issues. Some moments did evoke my old knee-jerk reaction to anime, and some characters weren't handled very well. But overall, it's fantastic. A dark examination of morality and a thrilling cat and mouse chase with a pretty fantastic set of visuals to boot. Here I should also frame my experience with foreign, particularly American adaptations. They are, almost universally, awful. That opinion didn't change after watching the Netflix movie. Before I get stuck into this particular adaptation, I want to be clear that it's not universally terrible. There are a few moments that seem decent enough, but even the best moments in this film are only ever worse interpretations of moments in the anime. This is what I find so infuriating about the film. If you're going to change something, make sure you've got a reason to do so. Adaptations only come in two forms. One, the adaptation remains as faithful to the original as possible, bar occasional concessions. I'm going to label these faithful adaptations, and this is the path I believe the anime series took, based on my knowledge of the original manga. 2. The adaptation tries to distance itself from the original through many differences that weren't essential. I'm going to refer to these as unfaithful adaptations, and this is the path the Netflix movie took. Both are fine options in theory, but in practice they have issues. In faithful adaptations, there is the question of why. Why make a new film or series at all if it won't bring anything new to the table? In unfaithful adaptations, there is the question of why the changes were made, and typically the changes aren't as thematically interesting as the original decisions. This is the crux of my, frankly scathing opinion of the Netflix film. Every single decision to change something was to the detriment of the original themes. Instead of improving on the issues the anime series had, or taking the ideas further, the film manages to be less dark, less complex, less exciting, and less interesting in each and every moment, and it's by a deliberate choice every time. The first issue I had with the film was the acting, specifically that of Nat Wolff's performance as Light. This isn't a particularly nice thing to say, but if you're going to take liberties with the cast, change the focus, and destroy all of the complex characterization that was present in the anime, you should have at least picked a better lead. To give Nat Wolff the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to say that he must have found it hard to keep a straight face given the script, but I had a similar issue keeping a straight face in response to his performance. Suffice to say, he won't win any fans from this film. Maybe it's unfair to expect that an adaptation could accurately convey Light as a character, given the length of the film. Or perhaps they were trying to establish Light as something of an idiot. But if you're going to make such heavy changes to the rest of the film, why not make Light older, or have him portrayed by almost any other actor in the film? Putting Light and Ryuk in the same room in the anime worked because both were portrayed well. Putting Wolff's Light in the same room as Willem Dafoe's Ryuk, though? I'm sorry to say Wolff's performance doesn't even compare to Dafoe's.
What exactly can I do with this Death Note? What exactly did you have in mind?
Well, it says that I can specify the manner of death. But if I can choose how they die, does that mean that I can actually control them?
Every human spends the last moments of his life in the shadow of a death god. If we so desire, we can influence those moments. There are, of course, limitations.
Okay, so one of the central relationships in the film is ruined by the acting. But that's pretty weak criticism, isn't it? After all, I think the Harry Potter films are decent, despite Daniel Radcliffe's rather stiff performance. If bad acting put up a red flag, then the plot put up a whole field of them. There are many issues I could discuss here. Framing the story around an awful romance, or wasting the potentially interesting relationship between Light and his father in the manner the film did, are both prime examples of the issues the plot has. But there's one major issue I absolutely cannot stand. Both Light and Elle are incredibly stupid. Or rather, incredibly stupid in comparison to the characters that they're said to be. Let's go back to the anime. Light and Elle were established as intelligent by the actions they took. Light is first introduced as a perfect student by his perfect reading of English text in class. In the film, he is introduced in a somewhat similar manner, solving algebra equations before selling them to another student. So I guess he's smart, but he doesn't think very far ahead? I don't know if that's quite right, but that's not too big a deal. How about Elle? In the original, Elle is introduced as some kind of super detective by policemen. But his real introduction is in this sequence, where he quickly ascertains the two things Kira needs to kill, and his rough whereabouts. It's a massive and immediate step in the investigation, and this only serves to back up what the policemen were saying. So, Elle's a pretty good detective. What about in the film? Again, he makes a big leap in finding out where Kira is, and then in finding out what two things he needs to kill. So again, we should assume he's a pretty good detective, although his deductions are a little flimsy, as I'll discuss later. So far there aren't too many issues, right? Well, it's all downhill from here. In the anime, Light carefully considered every rule written in the Death Note before writing a name down. While he thought it was a prank, he made sure it would be a criminal that died if it wasn't. Both so he wouldn't be caught, and because that way it'd be someone that deserved it. In the movie, Light is just a psychopath from the get-go. He doesn't even bother reading all the rules. He doesn't seem to care about potential consequences, and doesn't even try to hide his location or identity. Yeah, no one could possibly link this death to me. Why not kill the bully that just punched me? Oh, also I'm going to decapitate him, because that's cool. This is not how a smart character should behave. It wouldn't be such a problem that they frame him as a psychopathic idiot from the start, except for the fact the ending seemingly depends on us believing he wasn't up until that stage. In the end, big twist, Light kills his girlfriend, who also tried to kill him because this movie is dumb. But you're not supposed to think that he'd do that. The ending is supposed to be a shock, but it's not, because Light was a psychopath from the get-go. As was his girlfriend, more on that later. Another warning sign would have been the bizarre decision to boast about the Death Note to impress a girl. He is mentally deranged, so why should the ending be surprising? What about Elle then? He's better, but still an idiot. For example, before Light is even aware of Elle has figured out that Kira can control victims before they die, and that he's in Seattle. I'm going to ignore the fact that Elle claims Kira must be in Seattle because the news footage of one of his first victims was only broadcast in Seattle, when Light found the stream on the internet the same way anyone from anywhere could have, because, hey, I'm feeling generous. Okay, cool, so Kira can control and kill his victims with just a name and a face. As a result, Elle covers his face and hides his name. That seems an appropriate action. His partner, Watery, does neither. Okay, that's dumb on Watery's part, but why does that make Elle stupid? If Elle was around someone who had revealed their face, why on earth would he allow them to freely give out their name? If there was previous footage of the two together, why not seed information that Watery had died, so Kira wouldn't try to control or kill him? I'm going to ignore the blindingly stupid idea that Watery is his full name, because hey, I'm still feeling generous. But there is so much here that doesn't make sense, even given the internal logic, or lack thereof, of the film. This was never a problem with the anime. You never felt like Light or Elle were stupid. and most of the time you're playing catch up because they were, and felt, smarter than you. In this film though, as smart as Light and Elle are supposed to be, I feel smarter, because the film breaks the illusion. They tell me they're smart, but don't show me why. Why is Light surprised by Elle when he wanted people to realize Kira was killing people?
Oh shit.
Wasn't recognition exactly what he wanted? He wrote literal notes on the wall saying justice of Kira because he wanted to be noticed. After Watari phones Light on his personal cell phone, why doesn't the world's smartest detective check Watari's phone records? When the film never once state the rule that disallows one person to kill another unless they are also named in the Death Note, why should I believe that controlling Watari in order to have him reveal Elle's true identity is in any way a logical action? Why doesn't Light try to get Watari to kill Elle? That would be a cop-out, right? So why not explain why that can't be done? Better yet, why have the bizarre B-plot involving Watari in the first place, when it's full of so many holes? I know they did it to provide motivation to Elle, to make his pursuit of Light personal, but that was never needed. In the anime, Elle wanted to find Kira because he wanted to. He doesn't like losing, he enjoys the challenge of a tough case, and he believes Kira must be stopped. Simple as that. If I'm seeing a potential plot hole in the anime, it's without exception because I'm wrong and the series will tell me as much in a later episode. If I see a plot hole in the film though, it's almost always because the film doesn't give us as much information as we, or even the characters, need. Or, and this is more likely, because they just made a mistake. Okay, so I'm being pretty brutal here, but I've got to mention a few more points. Think of this as something of a bonus round. First point, I want to talk about missed potential. There were moments where the film might have done something interesting. A specific one I found intriguing was presented here. This nightclub scene begins to mimic a little of the feeling of Drive. Imagine Death Note interpreted through the lens of synthwave and neon lights. I'm not sure it would have worked, but it sure as hell would have been more interesting than Death Note interpreted through the lens of a terrible romance and awful soft rock. Second point, while I'm talking about music, I need to talk about the anime. It had some amazing pieces of music. Elle's theme here perfectly sets the mood for the mental gymnastics the anime revels in.
Kira, it seems you can kill people without having to be there in person. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't just witnessed it. Listen to me, Kira. If you did indeed kill Lind L. Taylor, the man who you just saw die on television, I should tell you that he was an inmate whose execution was scheduled for today. That was not me.
What?
The police arrested him in absolute secrecy, so you wouldn't have heard about him on TV or through the internet. It appears that not even you have access to information about these types of criminals.
To my ears, nothing sounds quite like thinking music more than this track. It was prone to being a tad overly dramatic, and at times you can hear the midiness of the backing track, but the driving melodies and math and post-rock inspired guitar riffs are a perfect fit for the show. Soft rock, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of perfect for the show. Third point, they butchered Ryuk. In the anime, he is something of a stand-in for the audience. The people in the series are nothing more than his entertainment, just as the audience watch the machinations of the characters on screen for their entertainment. He had an interest not in guiding the action, but in observing it. Ryuk in the movie is not the observer, but rather an active participant, one who chose Light. If you've seen the anime, you'll no doubt understand why that's such an awful thing to do to Ryuk. It was sheer luck that Light found the notebook, and the god complex he developed in response to this discovery was one of the driving factors in Light's character arc. Aside from just Ryuk's character, they also ruined his visual design. He is meant to be creepy, he is meant to be unsettling, but this amalgamation of glowing eyes and purple needles? Willem Dafoe himself would have made for a far better Ryuk than this mess of horror cliches. Fourth and final point. Light's girlfriend in the film, Mia, is not good. She is bad. Very bad. If you ask any fan of the anime or manga who their favorite character was, the only reason anyone would have said Misa would be as a joke. Misa is not a great character. The way almost all of the female characters in the anime were treated deserves more criticism, because Light being sexist, and he is extremely sexist, doesn't excuse how all but one, or two counting Rem, of the female characters are disappointing, and even the one really good female character doesn't stick around for very long. But Misa, annoying as she is, comes way ahead of Mia. Mia is severely disturbed, but lacks any of the interesting characterization she should have as a result. If you're going to have a character who seems to get off on the idea of killing people, then why not explore that a little more? If she remains as hollow and frustratingly simple as she does, why give her so much screen time, or have her in the narrative at all? If there was one area the film might have improved upon, it was the female characters. The anime didn't exactly set the bar high in that respect.
I'm so tired. That shoot went on forever. Modeling takes a lot of energy.
At least outside of that one character in those 2 episodes. But no, the film is even worse. Now there's only one female character, and she is awful. She is also a plot point. She is both an awful character and an awful plot point. Yeesh. Finally, to close out this video, which is getting really long now, I want to switch focus back to the anime. Like I said before, it has issues, but as a whole, it's utterly brilliant. The fact the series could make Watery or L as interesting as they were, despite a complete lack of backstory, is a testament to how impressive the writing is. The fact Ryuk is both unsettling and amusing in equal measure is testament to the brilliance of the visuals. And that so many still discuss the morality at the core of the series and the manga it was based on is a testament to the wonderful thematic core that the show developed from. Ultimately, there's a reason that it convinced me of the merits of anime. Every aspect of the series was explored and utilised to its fullest. I don't think it's perfect, but I do think it acted as a perfect introduction to anime as a whole, while being a fantastic series in its own right. The Netflix movie is the opposite of that. Nothing about the film justifies its existence. Nothing in the film is even close to being adequate, let alone perfect. The only thing the movie was perfect for was as an illustration of the way even the most interesting ideas can be ruined in the wrong hands. But hey, that's just my take. I'd love to know what you thought. Am I too harsh on the movie? Hell, am I too harsh on the anime series? I mean, I love it, but do I love it enough? What was the worst part of the movie? Or the best part? Are you now imagining the Wending Refn directed Death Note that could have been? Let me know in the comments below. Cheers. Have a good one.